Hey, this is Gloria Teixeira, UFC light heavyweight champion.
Hi, I'm Robbie Lawler.
What's up, fight family? This is your favorite MMA coach, Thiago Alves, the Pitbull.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Pedro Moyes.
This is Mike Brown.
Guys, I am Alexei Oleinik, and welcome.
And welcome.
And welcome.
And welcome.
And this is We Want Picks.
And you're watching We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks. Hi everybody from American Top Teams.
My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. And this is Quick Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC Vegas 48 Walker vs. Hill fight card. I'm going to give you my picks, my bets, and I'm going to try to do it in 20 minutes or less. If you want a more detailed breakdown with picks, bets, fantasy plays, and multiple perspectives, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join our Tuesday night live stream at 8:30 p.m. Central. If you want $50 free, that's right, 50 free dollars. Go to wewantpicks.com/bets, sign up with any one of our 5 betting partners, make a deposit, let me know after you do, and I'll send you $50. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, however you want it. That's wewantpicks.com/bets. This video is brought to you by BETU Play to Earn. It is the world's first online play to earn sports and esports betting game. Check it out now at betuearn.com. That's bet, the letter U, earn.com. Opening up the card, we have David Onama versus Gabriel Benítez. And Gabriel Benítez is a very good kickboxer. Specifically, he has phenomenal kicks. Rumors are flying that he's the hardest kicker at American Kickboxing Academy. That's because his coach started those rumors. But think about who's at American Kickboxing Academy, right? Former heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez. And he grouped him in that category of fighters and said that Gabriel Benítez is the hardest kicker at the gym. Gabriel has great movement. He picks his shots well, and he has very real power. His takedown defense is at 56%, and he will probably need it in this matchup because David Onama, who likes to plot forward and control the pace, is a fantastic kickboxer. Typically, he doesn't have incredibly high volume, but he is effective. He has had fights, though, in the past, like with Sam Hernandez, where he really does let it all go. He's always moving forward, slowly cutting off angles, and that helps keeps his opponents on their heels. He's got a very long jab that he's constantly throwing out there, but he does tend to throw just 1 or 2 punches at a time, unless he's in the clinch, and then he gets really busy with knees and elbows. If you can back him up and you can use volume, you can get him out of his rhythm. This should be a really fun fight. We've got 2 solid strikers. They're willing to slug it out. I think Onama has the speed, power, and versatility advantage, but Benítez will have the experience and grappling advantage. If you dig into Onama's fights, you'll see that even outside of his loss to Mason Jones, where he was taken down 8 times, he does struggle with grappling, and he does get taken down somewhat often. Onama is a slight favorite here, and I think those odds are correct because if they get into a slugfest, I think Onama wins that fight. But if Gabriel can work in his grappling like he did against Humberto Bandendai, he should win. But the reality is he does have the grappling tools, but he doesn't really use them. Gabriel does not use them. He has 1 single takedown in 11 UFC fights. So I got to go with Onama here to win a kickboxing match. But if Gabriel digs into that skill box of his, starts wrestling, starts grappling, and using the tools that he has outside of just fun kickboxing matches, he could potentially make this an interesting fight. Then we got Jessica Rose Clark versus Stephanie Egger. Jessica Rose is coming off that solid win over Jocelyn Edwards where she had 5 takedowns. She's a very good striker. She's got legit power. She's more of a boxer than a kickboxer, but she can be deadly from anywhere on her feet. She can be nasty in the pocket, and she throws with bad intentions. Until her last fight, we actually had not seen much of her wrestling, but it's clear that she is a very capable wrestler and grappler now. Stephanie has solid power. She's sloppy, but has effective takedowns. She marches forward. She looks to tie you up and work from there. She will typically hold you against the cage or try to muscle you to the ground. If Stephanie Egger can get into a rhythm with her striking and keep Jessica at bay, avoiding the takedowns, she may actually have a chance to win this fight. If you watch Stephanie Egger fight Tracy Cortez, she was basically dominated with just traditional wrestling. Just straight up, normal, drop elevation, take a shot wrestling. And we now know Jessica possesses those wrestling skills. And this is a hard call to make. And I do think the odds are a bit wide here because Jessica could come out, wrestle first, follow that Tracy game plan, or she can want to strike and potentially fall behind like she did when she fought Pannie Khanzad or Jessica Ai. I do like Jessica Rose Clark to win this fight. I think her striking is very good, and now she does have confidence in her wrestling. Obviously, we've seen her execute it, but Stephanie Egger is a very live underdog in this fight, and she's much better than those 2-to-1 odds that the odds makers have put on this. So Jessica Rose Clark is the pick, but if she does not mix in the wrestling, I think she may have some trouble with a very game Stephanie Egger. That brings us to Diana Belbiţă versus Gloria de Paula. Diana Belbiţă is a high-pressure volume striker with decent BJJ and ground pound. She's well-rounded, constantly moving forward, and she doesn't slow down. She's effective in the clinch. She's effective off her back on the ground. On paper, she has a ton of experience, but her record is a bit hollow. You look at it a little closer, it's a lot of local fighters. There's a bunch of losing records in there. But technique-wise, I mentioned she's very well-rounded, and she can fight anywhere, but she does get overly excited at times and have some low fight IQ moments. Gloria de Paula is a good striker. She's got solid accuracy and a great clinch. Her striking style is more of a stick and move instead of a high-volume, high-pressure. But if she does get the clinch, she will turn it on, and she will explode in there. Her lack of experience has been an issue. It was a real issue for her against Jin Yu Frey. And then if you go to her other loss against Cheyenne Bays, that was more of a fluke than an experience thing. She was just caught with a beautiful combination there. This is an interesting fight because I think both of these women are great prospects that will fine-tune some things, make some changes, and could actually do something in the division. They're both technically sound. They're both well-rounded. But I do think Gloria de Paula is the much better striker. But Belbiţă's pressure, experience, and takedowns will probably be the difference here. So I like Diana Belbiţă to win. But if Gloria can keep it standing and settle into a rhythm striking, this could be her fight. So we have two back-to-back fun, competitive women fights. But I've got Diana Belbiţă winning this one. And that moves us on to Mario Bautista versus Khalid Taha. Mario Bautista is a high-volume, give-one-to-get-one style striker. He sets a nice pace, and he's always plodding forward while being light on his feet. He's constantly moving, and then he plants his feet and just lets his hands go. Even though he's constantly moving, he actually is pretty hittable, which has gotten him into some trouble in the past. Khalid Taha is a kickboxer. He's got solid power, great speed, and a nice stance switching style. He will go from orthodox to southpaw, no problem. He comes forward and he is not afraid to engage. He's definitely a striker, but he has some solid grappling when he needs it. He just doesn't have the takedowns to get it there. If you look at his recent record, he only has one win in his last 5 fights. But he has not been given many favorable matchups here. His last 3 fights were Sergey Morozov, Hani Barcelos, and Bruno Silva. The odds makers are sharp here because right now the odds are essentially even. It's basically a pick'em. And I was hoping they would be sleeping on Khalid because of his recent record, and maybe I'd be able to grab Khalid as a solid underdog here. But no, the odds are pretty much spot on, and they're wise to the fact that he's much better than his recent record. It's a tough pick for now. I'm going with Khalid. I'm going on the side of Khalid, the very tiny, slight underdog here. I like his power. I like his speed to match up well against Bautista's volume, because even if Bautista sets a hard pace, Khalid has proven he's been able to hang and his cardio seems to hold up. So Khalid's the pick. He could potentially find the button on a very hittable Mario Bautista. We move to Chaz Skelly versus Mark Striegl. Chaz Skelly, he's coming off a 2-year layoff, but he has had some fights booked since then. Pretty much exactly a year ago, he was supposed to fight Jamahal Emmers. Chaz walked out. He came into the cage. He was ready to go. Jamahal literally never came out, and apparently he was having back spasms in the locker room. And I say this because, yes, Chaz hasn't fought in 2 years, but he has been through camps. He's made the weight. He's been training this whole time. Technique-wise, Chaz is a slick jiu-jitsu guy. He loves to mix it up on his feet. Go back and watch his Sparta kick against Maximo Blanco in the first 3 seconds of that fight, and then come back here and comment down below and tell me that this guy is not a ton of fun to watch, because Chaz Skelly always brings the heat. And we haven't seen it yet in the UFC, but Mark Striegel's a solid wrestler. He's got good forward pressure. He chain wrestles really well. On his feet, he has the technique, but he never really looks comfortable. He's always bouncing with solid footwork, but he never really fully commits to his entries. And typically, he'll blitz forward and then chase those takedowns. He does have some power if he connects, and when he times his wrestling shots really well, he could absolutely be dangerous. I love Chaz Skelly in this matchup. He's technically sound on his feet. He's got a willingness to slug it out, and then he just comes in with a wide variety of takedowns, and then when he's on top, he's got solid pressure, and he's constantly looking for a submission. Mark certainly has his own takedowns here, and he has been known to shoot early, so he could potentially catch Skelly off guard. But I think Chaz is well prepared for a grappling match, and I think he absolutely gets it done. I love Chaz Skelly in this fight. That brings us to Jesse Strader versus Chad Anheliger. Jesse Strader is coming off a TKO loss to Montel Jackson, and that was in his UFC debut, and that was on very short notice. Then he was supposed to fight Manny Martinez this past summer, but he had to pull out. So stylistically, Jesse is always moving forward with tons of action. He sets a solid pace. He's got nice power. He is a traditional boxer, though, and he fights like one. So he comes in, he lights up the body, and then comes straight to the head. He's always looking to get his hands going. He loves ripping that body. He comes right up to the head, and that's a combination he seems to use very often in his fights. He's not just a boxer, though. He has solid takedowns, and he's a pretty well-rounded guy. Chad Anheliger is a very real prospect. His fight style is a power striker with solid BJJ if he gets it to the ground. He sets a nice pace, and he hits incredibly hard. His takedown defense is okay, but his sweeps and his get-up game on bottom is very impressive. If he gets on top, he absolutely tees off on people. And this is a fun striker versus striker matchup. I think Chad is the more well-rounded fighter, but I absolutely love how Jesse rips the body and then comes right over the top to the head. The only problem with that, and if you dig into his fights, he goes to that combination very often, and it doesn't take long for people to figure out that timing and what he's doing there. So right now, as the odds sit, Chad is a 3-1 favorite, and I think that's pretty wide. I am picking Chad to win here, even though Jesse does have takedowns, but Chad's ability to sweep and get up is very impressive. I'm going to try to find a way to bet on Jesse here. We always talk about that plus 3.5 bet where you buy one single round on the judges' scorecard. I think it's a competitive fight. I think Jesse can steal a round, so when those props drop, I will probably grab that. Go to wewantpicks.com/bets. We've got 5 partners. The one partner that offers that is Bet Online. Click the link, sign up, make a deposit. Let me know after you do, and I'll send you $50. That brings us to my good friend Parker Porter, and I'm going to start this with letting you know I am absolutely biased. I'm going to do my best to be objective here, but I'm personal friends with Parker Porter. We go way back. So yeah, I'm going to be a little biased in this breakdown. Parker has had a solid run in the UFC so far. He did debut on short notice. He was not in a fight camp. He had just had a baby that was a few weeks old, and he debuted against Chris Daukaus. But if you ignore the outcome of that fight where he was stopped and just look at the fight itself and factor in he had cut 40 pounds in like a week. It was crazy, the circumstances. He actually looked decent in that fight, and he had some solid moments. Since then, he's had 2 solid wins where he set the heavyweight significant striking record and then came back and then broke his own record in his next fight. Parker has fantastic footwork, solid power, underrated wrestling, ridiculous volume. He's very tough, and he has an absolute willingness to come forward and engage. Alan Baudot is a competent striker. He's never seen the judges' scorecard, so he's willing to die out there, and he's willing to chase a knockout. He's teammates with Striegl Gahn, so I have to imagine that he's been in camp for a little while now, helping Striegl get ready for his title fight last month. But he comes out, he plants his feet, and he lets his hands fly. He will throw anything from any angle that includes spinning attacks and all sorts of wild looping power shots. He's got legit power. He will risk getting knocked out to chase his own knockout. His takedown defense is okay, but once he gets to the ground, it is clear he's at a disadvantage against almost anybody that he fights. The odds makers have Parker at a minus 250 favorite, and I totally understand why. Here is where the more technical striker, more volume, better wrestling, all of that plays into this. So I think Parker is definitely the more skilled fighter. He definitely has the cardio. He's seen the judges' scorecard multiple times. But Allen will be live from the very minute they touch gloves for a knockout. He has no problem getting hit. And Parker has no problem coming forward. Allen has no problem winging big, heavy shots to chase that knockout. So I think Parker Porter wins this fight. He is absolutely my pick. He's the better fighter everywhere. I'd say Allen might have a little more power. But I do think Parker should lean on that wrestling, get some takedowns in there, and just absolutely dominate Allen Baudot on top, because the guy is a finisher and he can make things happen. We have the rebooked Joaquin Buckley versus Abdul Razak Alhassan. And this was rebooked from UFC Vegas 46 because Alhassan had to pull out. And this is a striker versus striker matchup, and I'm here for it. Joaquin Buckley is the proud owner of the greatest knockout in the history of the UFC. He is short, thick, he's got big power, and he comes in hot. He has a good forward movement, but he doesn't cut too many angles. He just sort of plots forward and throws those bombs. He comes at you straight on with speed, with power. He does do a great job ripping the body and then coming up to the head. He has a performance of the night bonus in every single one of his wins, and he will absolutely be looking for another one against Alhassan. Abdul Razak Alhassan is a very powerful puncher. He does tend to headhunt, though, and look for those knockouts. He's a high-level judo practitioner that just fell in love with his striking and fell in love with his power, so we don't see a lot of that judo, and it's a shame because he's such a talented grappler that if he mixed that in more, he would be a very hard puzzle to solve. People would have to worry about defending throws and then have to worry about being knocked out. He's an incredibly talented guy. He's got great power in his hands, and as we saw in his last fight, his feet as well. But his path to victory here will be to go back to his roots, lean on his judo, and keep Buckley guessing whether he's going to have to strike or defend takedowns and really throw off Buckley's rhythm and then make something happen from there. The most interesting thing about the statistics in this matchup is Buckley has a horrific takedown accuracy at only 16%. But has attempted takedowns in every single UFC fight except one. And that's surprising because he's the dominant striker most of the time, so there's no reason for him to be taking shots, but he does. But if you look at the majority of Alhassan's losses, he was taken down and ridden out. He has not lost a striker versus striker matchup. I think Buckley needs to pick up the pace, come forward, cut angles, which he doesn't normally do, and he could beat Razak. But Alhassan has very good counter striking and can absolutely catch Buckley on the way in. I like Buckley here. He is the pick, but I'm not sleeping on the power and the reaction times of Alhassan. There's not a round line yet for this fight, but I am going to hit the over if it's a 1.5 because I'm sure the odds makers would throw a 1.5 on here, and I do think this fight goes a little bit longer than people expect. Then we've got Nikolas Motta versus Jim Miller. This fight is also rebooked. This was supposed to happen in September, but Jim Miller had COVID, so now we're back at it. And we've got Jim Miller taking on Nikolas Motta. Jim Miller is a legend. He has multiple UFC records for longevity. And you saw those this weekend when they were talking about Derek Lewis and the amount of knockouts he's had, Andrei Arlovski, the amount of fights he's had. You saw Jim Miller's name on every single one of those lists because of how long he's been fighting. He's a very good grappler. He's got clean boxing. He has just okay wrestling. But he does have all the veteran savvy, toughness, and grit you would ever want out of somebody. But he's older. The chin is starting to go. The speed is starting to go. The durability is going. I'm not sure how many fights he has left, but in his last outing, they gave him a middle-of-the-road prospect in Eric Gonzalez, and he just put that dude out, made it happen, and that was fantastic for him. And it seems like the UFC is using Jim Miller to gauge how good a prospect actually is or is not. And Nikolas Motta is a very good striker. He's explosive. He's very athletic. He moves well with his speed and his striking diversity. He's got solid takedown defense, which will definitely be important in this matchup because he does not have much to offer off his back on the ground. I love Jim Miller. I absolutely love Jim Miller. But I got to go with Motta in this matchup. Like, yes, Jim is coming off a knockout win over a young prospect, but this is a very different fight. Motta is incredibly explosive. He's got great power. He's patient when he needs to be. He's athletic enough to scramble. Jim has a very clear advantage on the ground, but he needs to take some damage to get it there. And I don't know at this point in his career how much damage he can take. So I am asking all of you Contender Series fade people, please fade Nikolas Motta, bet big on Jim Miller so that I could come in behind you and hopefully get a better line on Nikolas Motta because I think he gets it done. I love Jim Miller here, but I think Nikolas Motta, his striking is just too good. He's too slick. He's too athletic. And an aging Jim Miller is going to be on the wrong side of this one. Then we've got Kyle Daukaus in the co-main event against Jamie Pickett. And Kyle Daukaus has had a weird run as of late. He had the no contest headbutt against Kevin Holland in October. Then the rematch was booked for November, but Kevin pulled out, so they gave him Roman Dolidze. Then Roman Dolidze had to pull out. Then he was booked on this card against Julian Marquez, and Julian Marquez had to pull out. So now we have Kyle Daukaus versus Jamie Pickett. Kyle Daukaus is the younger brother of heavyweight striker Chris Daukaus, but they have very different fighting styles. Kyle is a very good grappler with solid clinch work and okay boxing. He averages almost 2 takedowns per fight, but he has a very low 27% takedown accuracy, which is a concern because he likely needs to get it to the ground in this fight. Jamie Pickett is a very big guy. He normally has a massive reach advantage, but this will be his second fight in a row where his opponent is just as tall and pretty much just as long. He uses his length to manage range and to keep people at bay, and he does that pretty well. If you look at the stats, he has a 1-2 striking differential, so he is hit twice as many times as he hits other people, and that's because he's gun shy. He doesn't let his hands fly. If JV manages the range and then engages with takedowns, which we've seen him use in the past, like against Staropoli, like against Nchukwu, I can see him having some success. But Daukaus is a very different fighter on the ground than those two guys. I'm torn here because I think Jamie is the better striker, but his unwillingness to engage and his gun-shy tendencies can have him on the wrong end of those exchanges, and then he falls behind, and that just gives Daukaus more time to come in, shoot takedowns, and then work from there. If we go back 3 weeks and we watch the Jamie Pickett that fought Joseph Holmes, well, he had takedowns. He had solid volume. He looked fantastic in that fight. That Jamie, the Jamie who lets his hands go and then mixes in takedowns, that Jamie beats Kyle Daukaus almost every time. So I'm going to do a slight lean to Jamie Pickett because we just saw that version of him 3 weeks ago. So my pick is Jamie Pickett, and I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, we get more of the same. A guy that has some volume, a guy that mixes in takedowns, and he doesn't wait for Kyle Daukaus to come in and do what he does. So hopefully Jamie Pickett lets his hands go and mixes in his own takedowns in that fight. And that brings us to the main event, the new main event of the evening. Rafael Dos Anjos and Rafael Fiziev. That fight was moved to UFC 272 because of visa issues. And now the main event is Johnny Walker versus Jamahal Hill. But don't forget, this was the co-main. So this was 3 rounds. Now it's 5. So keep that in the back of your mind as you're doing your own breakdowns and your own picks. So Johnny Walker is a very big light heavyweight at 6'6". But not only is he massive, he's fast, he's powerful, athletic, and he can be wild on his feet. He's fun to watch. He gets very creative with his striking. He'll spin, he'll jump, and he'll smile the whole time while he's in one of those wild fights. He's very unorthodox and he's very dangerous because all of his crazy striking techniques have legit power behind them. We've only seen him get put out once in the UFC, and that was a while ago against Corey Anderson. So he's got the chin, he's got the wild striking technique, and if it hits the ground, he's very capable there as well. And he can wrestle. Jamahal Hill is a tall, rangy striker who comes forward and picks his shots really well. He has an incredible 7-3 striking differential, so he almost doubles his opponent's strikes. He is primarily a boxer, but he does have solid leg kicks. He typically doesn't have incredible power, but he was able to put out Jimmy Crute in his last fight. Most of his stoppages are because his accuracy and his volume. His opponents end up being a step behind, then they shell up against the cage, and the ref comes in and goes, fight's over. What makes this a tough pick is Johnny's last fight against Thiago Santos. Johnny Walker is supposed to be this high-volume guy with a wide variety of techniques, but in that last fight against Thiago Santos, he was more controlled. He tried to fight a more orthodox fight, and that's just not who he is. It was a close fight. He had some success in there, but he almost lost who he was. He almost forgot who he is as a fighter. He's almost too controlled, and that's not what we want out of him. He did have solid leg kicks. He did have solid range, but that's not what makes him dangerous. If he fights like that, the controlled Johnny Walker, if he fights like that against Jamahal Hill, I think he loses that fight because I think Jamahal Hill manages the range much better than Walker does. And if Walker wants to play that range game, I think Jamahal Hill will gladly engage in that style of fight, and he will gladly keep Johnny Walker at the end of all his strikes. But if Johnny Walker goes back to who he is, goes back to the unorthodox, high-volume action man that he was before he moved to Conor McGregor's gym, I could see him throwing Jamahal Hill off and then taking the win. There's so many questions here. There's so many questions. And again, they're mostly, is Johnny Walker going to be who he was 2 years ago, or is he going to be who he has been in his last couple of fights? I do like Johnny Walker here. I feel like that last fight was such a big, disappointing loss to him that he's going to come out here and he's going to try to be who he was. He's going to go back to the volume, the unorthodox, the spinning, the kicking, and he's going to mix it in. If he tries to fight a technical fight, Jamahal Hill's going to piece him up. So I do like Johnny Walker. I think that loss was somewhat eye-opening to him. He doesn't have the best. He's 2-3 in his last 5. He doesn't have the best little streak going, and I think there's enough there for him to sort of make some changes and go out there and do what he should do and be who he wants to be naturally and not let Conor McGregor's freaking coach try to tame him, because that's not who he is. So I like Johnny Walker to win. Let me know your picks below. And if you want $50 free, go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Sign up with any one of our 5 betting partners. Make a deposit. Let me know, and I'll send you $50. Make sure you like, subscribe, and join our full breakdown on Tuesday nights, where we do far more detail than what I just did, and you get multiple perspectives.